Welcome to Moments That Define Us, my friend.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. And I have to tell you, Emily, after we had our, what do we call, like, Badass Women meeting on Wednesday, I came to the meeting. I was looking forward to the meeting for, since you told us when we're going to have the meeting. And because, with everything is going on and I was just feeling just like sad and exhausted. And after we had that meeting, just listening to everybody talking and that everybody, feeling everything that's going on, right? But just come together and lift each other up. Right away, my day changed. And after after the meeting, I called Bella and I was like, and we both were like, oh my gosh, this was like a magical meeting. So thank you and Jamie for putting this women together that we come once a quarter and we just laugh and talk about what we're doing and just trying to do good in the world. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being a part of it. It feels really, I think that entrepreneurship can feel pretty lonely. So it feels, and that was one of the reasons why we created it. So it feels really good to have a container where we can connect and talk and celebrate what we're doing and what we're moving through, and also like honestly speak about maybe more difficult things that we're challenging or facing, and then to also talk about our goals and to have, one another hold each other accountable. So
Absolutely. And so tell me why. Look, first of all, you're such a proponent for all women, and we're going to talk about the work that you do. But since we on this conversation about this group, why did you and Jamie decide to put this together? Like, what was it behind it? You like, let me get all these women that I know, some that I know maybe very well, some we met, last spring, right, at a friend's wedding. But I felt like I've known you because I know your best friend Jamie, right? So tell me about like the conversation you had with Jamie, who's also entrepreneur, and you're like, hey, let's do this.
yeah, well, her and I are working on some business things together in bringing wellness programs into corporate companies. So her and I, just in general, for our own businesses, we both run our own businesses, and then we're doing this work together. So we were like, let's hold each other accountable. Let's meet quarterly. Let's get clear on what it is we're working on. Let's help with each other, or give each other the space to really prioritize what we are working on currently in our business. And so it started with that, just her and I doing now what we're doing with the entire group. It's expanded and evolved because, now we're facilitating a meditation. We facilitate, uh, you know, prompts for us to all discuss. So it's evolved in that way, but it kind of started with her and I, and then we were like, you know what, I feel like this could be useful for other people that are also building businesses. And so we kind of thought, well, what energies would go well together, and we created and invited you guys into the collective. And then we hope to grow it. But yeah, it's been going well so far.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's so. I was listening to another podcast where like they were talking about us humans, right? Like, for example, about a health, right? Or about like losing weight. And
Hmm.
so the guy on the podcast was saying, yeah, it's very simple, like eat more vegetables, right? Like don't eat stuff that come in a package. It seems very easy, right?
Hmm.
But then like us humans, like, no, it's too easy. I need something more complicated. You know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah.
I feel like in general, I'm not saying that life is easy. That's not, but like there are those like little things, little steps, easy steps we can take to make big changes, right? So
Yes.
for you, and again, I just am so in awe of women that like seeing the need for something and like, let's create this, right? Because every woman that I talk to, it's like, oh, I saw the need. And that can be, in your home, in your community, in your work, whatever. People see the women see the need and like, hey, let's create this, right? I was recently talking to this woman who started this nonprofit organization in Denver helping unhoused people, right? And it's like, and she was telling me stories like, I was driving through this neighborhood in Denver that has a lot of, people on the streets. She was like, I saw the need. And so she left her corporate job and started this organization. There's obviously more to the story, but I just love being around women, like, because I think we can like do so many great things.
Yeah.
Um, so I thank you again. I can't thank you enough how important for me to be part of this group. But the meeting this week just like, I think helped me get out of the funk that I was in, because it was like the work and everything was going bad. And so that is
Yeah.
just like, did that. So just like women being there for each other, it's incredible. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your work, how you have, again, you helping women in so many ways, but you are in the health and wellness industry. Would that be the right industry to, I don't know, put
Yes.
you in? Or
Yes.
one of them, I guess.
Yeah.
But
That would be the bucket. Yeah.
yeah, that's the big bucket. So, and there are a few titles that you have, so I want you to go a little bit deeper into that and kind of explain what those are. So, you are a holistic movement specialist, accountability coach, mindful practitioner, and you're also a founder of online virtual movement studio Empower by EM. Holistic movement specialist. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, it's like taking a 360-degree approach to someone's wellness. So, and I focus like uh my first love was in movement. I grew up as a dancer. I've always moved. Movement has always been medicinal for me. It's always helped me to regulate my nervous system, helps me to feel better and more grounded. So, um holistic means I take a 360-degree approach. I take into consideration how it is that you're fueling your body. What are you listening to, reading to? What's on your Instagram feed? Is it feeding your mind in positive ways, or is it taking your joy away? And then integrating like mindfulness into everything I do. So there's three main pillars of my business, Empowered by Emily Mara, which is movement, mindfulness, and nourishment.
Okay, so,
So
so you take a big approach to, so it's not just, you're not just providing people with exercises, let's say, right? Oh, this is how you make, this is for your core, this is for that, this is for this, but you take an approach on everything, right?
yeah, yeah, I have different programs for what different people need essentially. So with some people, I have programs on my platform that include it all. That include uh, better nutrition practices, that include mindfulness, such as meditation or journaling, giving them journaling prompts. Um, and in addition to movement, and then as a movement pillar in and of itself, I take a more holistic approach to it. Stop. I'm not going to tell you you just need to strength train. I'm not going to tell you that you just need to do cardio. I think that it's more complicated like than that. I think that um, one, people should do what they love. If they have a hard time motivating to move, they should, one, just start with what they love. And then two, once you have a consistent movement practice, it's like, how do we make it more well-rounded? If you're
Mm-hmm.
strength training 3 days a week, maybe there's another day that you could elevate your heart rate in a different way that's going to be increasing the capacity of your lungs and your heart, and the strength of your heart. So, really taking a full approach to movement in and of itself, and then also wellness in and of itself for each individual, which would be more nutrition and mindfulness and movement.
I feel like, this because I've heard, the word holistic being applied to a lot of different things. But I feel like we just need to look at our life holistically too, right? Because sometimes we concentrate so much on one thing that we not paying attention to everything else, wondering why this is not working and this is not working. It's because um again, we leaving something behind and we have to, which is sometimes it's hard, concentrate on everything. But I love your approach to that. So you said you grew up you started dancing really young, right? And I think that's, tell me if I'm wrong, is that where you met Jamie? Did you guys start dancing together?
Yes, we grew up dancing together at the same studio.
What did you, were you a ballet dancer? What kind of dance did you practice?
Yeah, I did ballet first, and then I love ballet. I think it's incredibly important in terms of giving you a foundation of technique. And the studio that I was taking classes at, I had to take 3 ballet classes a week in order to take any other form of movement. So I really love like lyrical and jazz. I love hip hop. But I started with ballet and then branched out from there.
Okay. And then because I know you lived for a long time in New York City, right? And then you also
Hmm.
lived in California, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
So tell me, like, I mean, of course it's gonna take a long time, but like in a shorter version. So you started with ballet, and then how did you move into what you're doing now, right? Because now you're doing so much more. You're doing all kinds of different movement. By the way, I love your video, and I will link your Instagram because your Instagram is like, it's one of those things, Emily, which I also have to thank you so much. Your page is gives me so much like joy, right? Because sometimes I would incorporate like a few moves that I go to the gym,
Yeah.
or just like positive quotes that you put and just all these different things. So your page is one of those feeds on my feed that gives me a lot of joy and hope in the world. But anyway, so take me like through your dance and movement journey, how you got from where you started to what you're doing now.
Yeah. My mom was a dancer, and I know we'll
Oh,
talk a little bit about her. So that's kind of where I was interested in it. My parents met dancing. My dad danced for a short period of time too. That's actually how they
look
met,
at that.
which is funny. Yes. And then my dad went into finance, and my mom did too, actually. But so I was always interested in the arts. Arts was a big part of my upbringing. And we grew up in a small town in northern Vermont where I met Jamie in Stowe. And I was just always more so than sports pulled to dance. I was at a dance studio, 6 days a week for most of my life, and then I was very involved with the local theater community. So I grew up every summer doing theater. Was definitely a theater kid, and then I went to school for theater. I have a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts in musical theater. So singing and acting and dancing was what I wanted to do professionally. And I did that for a while professionally. After I graduated, I traveled around the States and did regional theater. And it also brought me abroad. So I did children's theater in South Korea and then did it again did the same type of thing in Italy. So it really gave me the opportunity to travel. And eventually I landed in New York City to audition because that's where you go to audition for that career
Yeah.
path. So um, by the time I came back from living abroad, I was kind of contemplating whether or not I wanted to be fully in this industry. I was still auditioning, but it's definitely a difficult path. And I've always taken a creative path. I've always been an artist. I've always been pretty bold and daring in that way. Um, and I was just starting to question it, like, do I see myself being 30? Do I see myself being 35 and having to audition? And it's wonderful when you're in a show, but the in between is pretty difficult and hard. And there's a lot of unknowns, and you really have to fully commit your life solely to that art, to your art form. So um I was auditioning in New York, and I ended up auditioning for a company, this woman named Anna Kaiser, who's a big, huge celebrity trainer, who was looking for dancers in the fitness industry. And I had been living in LA before that. I got my personal training certification. I was teaching Zumba and group fitness at the time, and had kind of started doing that in between shows. So I was in the fitness industry and I was a dancer. So I was like, well, that sounds like it's right up my alley. And that kind of was the big, I auditioned, I got hired, and that was my entry into fitness and wellness. And I've been there ever since. I've kind of transitioned out of performing. It was a really good transition for me working with this company because she only hired dancers, and
Mm.
We got to perform just through her studio. So we got to perform on the Kelly Ripa was a big client of ours, so we got to perform like every year on her show live, dancing, and we did New York Fashion Week and things like that. So I still got to perform
Mhm.
um, while shifting into a totally new industry.
Yeah, so it looks like you got a lot of exposure and a lot of experience through that company
Yeah.
in New
Oh,
York.
yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah. A
You
lot of
know,
experience, a really good training background. We did a lot of strength training. I was a lot of training one-on-one. I learned a lot through that company and brand for sure.
I have to tell you, listening to you telling the story, like when what dance and movement expose you to, especially at the younger age, right, where you travel abroad and got to see that part, and it made me think of my daughter, because she is now, this is her what, second or third year. She also is doing that first dance, so ballet, jazz, and tap. And she, in the summer, it's going to be her third recital, and she's 7, a little bit older than 7, and she's now like, okay, I don't really like this, but I like this, right? So starting to figure it out
Hmm.
through that. And it's just, I love hearing how many opportunities you got through that, because I feel like she try a few different things, and also how the kids, when they small, they don't know, like, oh, let me try this and this, let me go where my friends are. But I see that she's like really starting to develop the love for dance, so it's just, it just warmed my heart to hear how many experiences you got. um okay, so you said your mom was a dancer, and
Hmm.
you probably got that, and your dad as well. And it's
Yes,
cool
yeah.
that they met dancing. I love those stories. So I want to talk a little bit about your mom. So tell me about, what kind of dance did she do?
She was ballet.
Ballet
Yeah,
as
she was
well.
mainly ballet. Yeah, she was a very good ballet dancer and taught, went into teaching it as well. Um, at a local college, she taught after she graduated college and
Okay.
performed.
Was she ever, going to do like big performances, kind of like what you did? Did they ever take her there? Was she
No, she didn't stay in it at that as long.
okay? Okay.
Yeah.
But she got your dad, and she gave you that love for dancing for you. Do you have
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
have any siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother.
You have a younger brother. Okay. How
Yeah.
much younger?
He's 2.5 years younger.
2.5. Okay, so just the two of you.
Hmm.
Same for me. So I wanted to talk about your mom, your relationship with your mom, and also then go into the motherhood, because you are now a mother of two girls.
Hmm.
So your mom's birthday is on January 11th,
Yes,
and
yes.
my mom's birthday is on January 12th. So I
Hmm.
I remember we talked about this, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's your mom." I think I posted something, or maybe I don't know. And then you're like, "Oh, my mom's birthday is on
It's because we were
January."
talking about rescheduling this.
Oh yeah,
And
oh
I
yeah,
think it
yeah,
was
yeah,
like, oh, I can't do that date because it's my mom's birthday. And I was like, oh, that's funny. My mom's birthday is the day before. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So this year, it's been 10 years, right, since your mom passed.
Hmm.
Um, Tell me about your childhood, growing up, the relationship you had with your mom as a kid.
My mom was we were close. I would say we were definitely close. And I will correct you, it was 10 years last year. So it was November 29th of 2024 that marked 10 years.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think my childhood with her it was her and my brother and I a lot because we lived in Vermont and my dad worked in New York City. So he would commute to the city every Monday morning and come back every Friday, or excuse me, yeah, very early Monday morning or Sunday night. So it was the three of us a lot. So I had a lot of time one on one with my mom. And she was a straight shooter. She was also she was very caring, and present, and family was extremely important to her. That was definitely something that I learned from her. And she was really, the matriarch of our family and our extended family too. She has four brothers. So uh she really did a lot of the planning in terms of making sure throughout the years that the whole family got together, all my uncles, their wives, my cousins. And we grew up doing that very consistently. So that was a big thing for her that I definitely learned from her, the importance of family, the importance of community. She was very open. She was all about having hard, open conversations, difficult conversations, uncomfortable conversations. She was a
Mm-hmm.
truth teller for sure. Um, and she was the mom out of all my friends that, like, my mom really knew my friends, and my friends really confided in her. So, a easy, she was a safe space
Mm-hmm.
to be vulnerable and honest and open.
That is so beautiful. Emily, something we have in common, and as I talk to you more, I find out how many things we have in common. You know, um, my dad also, we it was just me and my mom and my brother, because my dad also would travel on Monday and then come back either Friday evening or
Oh,
Saturday morning.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
so interesting.
that is.
Um, but what a beautiful thing for a mother to teach her kids how to have open and honest conversation, right? Because, oh my gosh, I feel like we go through life much smoother when we know how to build boundaries, how to talk with somebody like, hey, this is not working for me, or whatever that may be. So um what a gift that she gave you. And also i could I could tell that you're very organized, that you have your priorities straight. Like I could tell that from the little time, we spent together when we met in person, and just having this conversation with the meetings and just via text. Like I could tell that. So your mom give you such a good foundation.
Mm.
So 10 years ago she passed, and she was diagnosed with cancer, right?
Yes, breast cancer.
And
Yep.
how long was she battling cancer?
5.5 years. So she was diagnosed at 55, and then she passed when she was 60.
60. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
How did how did her, because it's just from hearing a little bit, you were close with her, she gave you a great foundation, your friends loved her, which is also like such a good compliment for a mother. Like, oh my gosh, I know my kids friends, and for your friends to say, hey, I feel so safe with your mom.
Hmm.
But how did that affect you? Because how old were you at the time when she
So I was 25 when she was diagnosed, 24 actually, I think. And then when she passed, I was 29.
I hear a lot of the times where people talk about losing a parent, specifically a mom, right? Because mom is such a strong figure in all of
Hmm.
our lives. And people say, oh, it's hard to lose a parent at this age. It's I hear people put the age to it, right? As if you lose your parents at 13 versus 25 or 35, it's any easier, right? So
Right.
how did her passing affected you, and how was your, or not was, I think, I don't know, with grief, I feel like the grief doesn't go away, just show up in a different ways. But how how did that affect you?
Yeah, I think, well, and going back to the age thing, I think it doesn't matter what age you are when your parent dies. I think it's still just it, it'll be hard in probably different ways. Um, so when I was at the age I was at, I gosh, I think it was, I had to it was hard to live with this impending doom.
Mhm,
Essentially, when she was first diagnosed, there was a lot of hope. Oh, I'm going to beat this. I remember I had just gotten the job in Korea, so I was like, oh my gosh, like I won't go to Korea. And she was like, go, like I'll be fine. You need to live your life. That's
mhm,
important. And and then we thought that she was she went into remission, and we thought that she was going to be okay. And then it came back, the same cancer and the same breast that had also already been removed. So it was just a really invasive cancer that she had. Um, and so I think like one of the hard things to navigate in hindsight was definitely just living with this kind of like dark cloud over your
mhm,
head of not knowing, every decision I made coming back to the States. I then moved to LA. I was always worried, is this the right decision? Should I be closer to her? Um, and then when we finally found out that, like, okay, this is not going anywhere. It had gone metastatic within in her bones. um then it was just like, okay, well, how much time do we have, and how do we make the most of this time?
mhm,
So what we ended up doing was I took a leave of absence from work. I was working in New York City at that time, and we all went and lived together for the last, 4.5 months of her life,
mhm,
which was incredibly difficult, but also incredibly impactful. And I think, um, my dad and I were her in-home hospice nurses. She wanted to die at home, and
mhm,
we were all living in upstate New York, which is where all my mom's brothers, excuse me, my uncles live.
mhm,
So we all spent a ton of time together, which was really impactful, I think, for that period of time, and I wouldn't change anything about it. Um, and it taught me a lot. It taught me, wow, just like how strong I am for
mhm,
doing that and being up throughout the night, giving her morphine, literally watching her, shift. Like she just changed so much in that time, especially the last 3 weeks of her life. So I think what was that whole thing like for me? It was just, I think it taught me how I had to be resilient in a way I had never had to be resilient before.
mhm.
So it really taught me that I'm strong and that I can show up when it's really important and
Yeah.
meaningful and impactful to show up, because I got to spend, and that's, I think about people who lose people, in a car accident. And I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky that I had that time with her, that I
Mhm,
could choose to be there, and that I was privileged enough to be able to do that, and that my family got that time together, because it was really, yeah, impactful. Um, so I think the aftermath of that was I had a whole healing journey to go on.
mhm,
And I think I jumped back into my life very quickly in New York City, because I wasn't ready to, everyone grieves in different ways. And my way to deal with the grief at first was to make myself extremely busy,
mhm,
and fill my time with life things. So, and eventually I got burnt out from that, from overworking and running from my emotions, essentially. And
mhm,
I started a whole like therapy journey, and kind of made shifts in my life uh, to deal with my grief.
mhm. You know, something you said, and I've heard that that's common for some people, right? That people fill up their life with like busy, busy, busy. I can't let myself feel, like somebody said, I can't let myself feel that much because I know I will fall apart. So I need to keep myself
Mhm.
together, need to keep myself together.
Mhm.
But also, another thing you said, that you guys had that time together, right? Because yeah, like when somebody is, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult losing somebody, no matter how they go. But I think
Mhm.
having that time together, so with your brother and with your dad and with your mom, that's and the way you talk about it, like how lucky I was, to have that time with my mom. Um, what do you think? What do you think you have from your mom? How are you similar? I mean, you talk a little bit about that, but how are you similar with your mom?
I think that my mom was very like in touch with her truth, in
Mm-hmm.
touch with what feels real. I don't think she was good at pretending. And I think that I'm very similar to her in that way. I like having real conversations with people. I like going deep with people. I like, I don't want to live on the surface. So I'm very similar to her in that way. Uh,
Yeah,
she was like, let's get to the real stuff. You know, let's get to go with what's really going on or what you're really feeling or what you're really navigating. Um, and I'm very much like that, definitely in my friendships and
yeah.
conversations with people.
And I like that about you so much because I don't know. I just feel like life is too short to live on the surface and to pretend to be someone
Mhm.
you're not, to do something
Mhm.
you're not doing. To 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 I don't know, to do all these things that like takes up so much time and energy. um so when you finally realize, you said, I fill up my life with all these things just to jump back in life and try to to live and not feel too much. So when did you realize, like, okay, I can no longer move that way because it's not helping me, heal?
Mhm. I think it just felt like everything in my life felt like it wasn't I just felt really out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like I was working at a company that I had grown a lot with, but it was no longer the right fit for me. I was quite burned out also. And the culture had really shifted and was not right for me anymore. And I was in a relationship that wasn't right for me anymore. And it was just kind of like all these things were just not right. So I was like, I just need to make some major big shifts. Um, so that I feel like I'm more in alignment, with
Mm-hmm.
myself. And so there were a few things. I had started going to therapy for the first time when my mom was sick. My family, we all went together actually, and that was my first exposure to therapy. I'm a huge advocate of therapy, and have been in and out of it ever since then. And I started going in the city on my own, um, and I started to meditate. I found this movement practice that was very cathartic and incorporated somatic movement and elements, which is um, this method of movement was called the class by Taryn Toomey, and this woman Taryn Toomey created it, and it is basically a form of movement meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And it is essentially great for you to go to this movement practice when you're going through something because you vocalize, you exhale, you can run your feet and yell in a room. It sounds crazy and woo woo, but it was this amazing method that also really helped me on my healing journey, and I ended up becoming a teacher for that method, auditioning and becoming a teacher for that method. So that was another thing. I think it was the point at which I started to really get to know myself and know what I want and what feels in alignment for me. And um and that was, kind of the impetus. Realizing that I was so out of alignment and I had no idea what I wanted.
Yeah.
And then I started to peel back the layers and figure that out, which was very messy at the time.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, like I think when we really dig into a soul, it is messy because I
Mhm.
feel like you're starting to take out all of the things that is not right for you, right? It's like, you know, like looking back, is like, why was I in that relationship? Or why did I say yes when I meant to say no? And all of these things is because it's because we didn't know who we were. And it's
Mhm.
also it's very interesting how how the universe works because you were like, okay, even though I was at this company that I grew with, but then something wasn't right. The culture changed and it wasn't no longer fit, right? And then the relationship, and then other things starting to tell you no. So basically, I always like, maybe also sounds woo woo, but I feel like you are in that too. So I can tell you, like, universe will
Yes.
give you signs, like, starting doing little things, and again, it's like, if you're ready, you will pay attention, right? And if you're not
Mhm.
ready, then you will again, and just like to touch a little bit like on the relationship, and like, oh, so many women, right, stay in relationship, not maybe knowing, but cannot like verbalize it or say it, or like express the feeling, or why it's not right, right? And then it's something, and then like, I feel like women always say, I had the feeling, like, we can't really, it's just like, I had the feeling right here, and it's always like that, and it comes out, and you're like, okay, this is no longer serving me.
Yeah.
And so, Emily, as we talk about grief journey, right? And I mean, now it's been 10 years. So I am curious, is that how is your journey now? Because it seems like you went through the healing, right? And all of that. But how is it, I don't know, is it different for you now, and how is it different? And how does it show up for you?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. I think that, you know, what they say about grief is at first, grief is all consuming. It's kind of like if you picture a circle,
Hmm.
um, I'd say your grief is a circle within that circle. That circle is really large and almost encompasses the entire circle of your life, right? And so that's how it felt at first. And now, over time, like your life expands around the grief, and the
Hmm.
grief doesn't go away. It's always there. It's a part of me. My grief is a part of me. And in being that it was just 10 years, a decade since my mom passed away, I spent quite a bit of time reflecting on it. And I think how I've come to try and think about grief is that it's a companion of mine, not always a
Hmm.
wanted companion, but it is a companion. It is a part of me that will always live with me. And I think that I think about my mom in some way, shape, or form every single day, even though she died 10 years ago. And that was the hardest part for me about grief, was that, like, oh, is the expectation that over time, like, I should just be over it, by now.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? And I think I've come to realize I won't be over it. It will always be a part of me. There will always be events in my life. I've gotten married. I found my husband since my mom passed away. I had my wedding. I went wedding dress shopping, all these events in which she would have been there for. Had my first child, had a second child, bought our first home. So it's all these events that will happen throughout my life that I will always feel like are not quite complete because she's not here.
yeah,
But I I think that it's just like that's just my love for her. That's my love for her. It's love. I've heard that grief is love with nowhere, it's love with nowhere to go. And it's just like that's for me keeping my love for her alive. So when my grief comes and it shows up, I try to give myself as much permission as I can to feel it and to let
Mhm.
it exist because it is just simply the reminder of how much she meant to me in my life.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's keeping her alive.
Mm. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah,
Not easy.
oh,
But it's like, it is just it will be there and that's okay. I think
yeah,
realizing that that's okay is a big lesson for me.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Like it just made me think about, I don't know, like it makes me so emotional because I mean, like we as women, I think, like need some mom so much, no matter how old or how young we are, and like you said, like I went to buy my, wedding dress and she, my kids and all of that. But yeah, I mean, I can only, I'm not even saying because I don't understand, but I can only imagine, what it's like for you or for anybody, that has lost mom or dad, um
Yeah, or just anyone that was significant, really significant in a daily part of their life. I think it's just a
yeah,
hard thing. And it's crazy because grief is not discussed very openly.
I
It
know.
is uncomfortable for people. So, yeah, I think thank you for having me on here to be able to talk about it openly because it's just
Yeah,
not it's
oh my
not
god,
it's not discussed very often.
it's not, and I really cannot understand why, right? Because it's part, we all will grieve, right? We all will lose someone, and we also, as we had this grief counselor, right? Who explained to me, because I thought that it was grief is like when you only lose a person, right? But grief can be when you lose, a job or a friendship,
Oh yeah.
even if that friend is still alive, which I talked about that what happened in my life, right? But um, I don't
I mean, I think
understand.
COVID, everyone was experiencing
Oh,
collective grief that didn't necessarily, and sometimes, unfortunately, it did have to do with the death of a person, but it was grieving what could have been, what should have been, you know.
yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. I feel like, during COVID, we were all grieving like the loss of connection, and I think
Mm-hmm.
we realized how important that connection was to all of us. And we didn't have it, for some people, especially for people who were, single, who didn't have family or something. Oh my goodness. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I'm so grateful for you to wanting also to open up about this, because a lot of the times people would say no, no, like I understand, right? Grief shows up different and people grieve differently, so I'm not absolutely not judging anybody, but just as a society, it's like, when somebody cries, like somebody was saying like, or the grief counselor, she was saying like, we trying to, oh, I don't know what to say. I don't know. And it's like, just sit with that person, just sit and let them cry, or let them, just be comfortable with that. Maybe that situation is uncomfortable, but be there, because that's all that person needs. Like you can't bring back, you know who they lost or what they've lost, right? Like we don't have that
Mm-hmm.
power, but just
Mm-hmm.
being with somebody, right? And just saying, I'm here. I can't change the situation, but I'm here, and I think that's so important. And I wanted to ask you, when you were going in a different way at the beginning stages, right? And now, did people, your friends, or I don't know, your friends, your colleagues, ever, did you feel that people showed up for you? Did you feel that support in a way that you needed?
Yeah, I did. I did. Not from I think that that's the thing too is about grief or when you're going through something that's really difficult or hard, uncomfortable. Um, People show up for you who you didn't expect at all. And sometimes people you expect to show up for you in a certain way, like they don't know how.
Mm,
So I think I had both, and I had some really, really, really good friends that really showed up for me and we did celebrations of life. My mom did not want a funeral. She wanted celebrations of life of everywhere that we lived. So we had
mm,
like basically three huge parties for her the year after she passed away. um, in two in different parts of Florida, and one in the our hometown in Vermont in her best friend's house, which is actually where I got married. So
Oh.
yeah, so full circle there. Um, but yeah, my friends showed up. I had two friends, Jamie being one of them, who came and flew to our house in Florida to go through all of my mom's clothes and help
Mhm.
me figure out what to do with her stuff. Yeah, I felt very supported, which
You know,
is, yeah, helped a lot.
interesting what you said about, because I've heard that from so many people that lost specifically, either that a parent or a spouse, that they say some people that I didn't expect to show up showed up, and people that
Mhm.
I was sure that will show up didn't.
Yeah,
Why do you think that is?
I think because people are uncomfortable with situations that maybe they've never navigated before. I think people get in their head about how do I bring it up? Do I not bring it up? What do they need? Like you were saying, the grief counselor was like, you just sit, you sit with them, you hold space for them, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. And some people, maybe it's whatever it is that they're going through, don't have the capacity to show up for you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, because like I said, I keep hearing that, but you're right. It- because then it goes, I think, to part of it is to because we don't talk so much about it, right? We are not taught of how to help people. We always I feel like feel the need to like I need to say something, and what do I say, right? But
Hmm.
it's okay to just be quiet, you know it's
Yeah.
okay to just be
Or to
quiet.
say, I don't know what to say, but no, I'm here, you know?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
um
Um,
so
but
yeah, that
I felt very supported and lucky for sure in that.
that's oh my gosh, that is important, for my goodness, for any situation that we go in life, right, where you feel like you have people behind you that are there for you, in good times, in celebration, but also in the most difficult times in life. And I feel like specifically for the situation that are difficult or that are hard, people that show up for you, like, that they are like your true people, right? Because they're there for you, like, no matter what. And that is incredible. So now you are a mom. You have two beautiful little girls that, oh my goodness, I love watching them on social media, and I hope like the kids get together one day.
Same, same. We'll have to make that happen.
Yeah. So how did motherhood change you?
Mm. I think the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask me that, and I've changed me in many other ways, but it's how to be more efficient with your time because you have no time anymore. You're
I
just
know.
stripped of all your time. Um, and so it's made me more efficient, I think, with my time. And I realized, wow, I really had all the time in the world prior to having children. Like I just did. Even
Is
if I was busy, it was just different. It is like busy to the next level. Um, but I think it changes you in just like your capacity to love. You're like, wow, how you like it's just the it's like having I forget, I think a friend explained it to me. It's like your heart is outside of your body all the
it?
time. Like, you're um yeah, and when you have one, you think you can't love the second one probably as much as the first one, and then you have another one and you're like, well, it's just expanding that much more. So,
I know.
yeah, your capacity to love expands. For sure. It's changed me in the way that probably of just like how I want to show up for them. I want to be present. I can really tell when I'm not and I'm distracted by work or by just being tired from the day. And I think just the importance of like connection and them feeling like you're really present with them makes a huge difference in your, like, I feel more connected to them when I can give them my full attention.
Yeah.
And I think when you're a working mom and your wife, and it can be hard to have that at the end of the day. So, what I'm currently doing is trying to figure out how to not be so tired at the end of the day so that I have like the energy to be in a more connective state, especially since they're, gone at daycare all day. So, oh, yeah.
Isn't that, oh my gosh, it made me laugh about the time because I I remember a few months ago I had this thought, right? When it was just me and Roy, right? No kids, nothing. It was like, what did we do with our time? We had so much time. Like,
We could do literally whatever we wanted whenever we wanted
I know.
for
Hey,
the
do you
most part.
yeah, like, do you want to go there? Should we? Hey, it's Friday, and now it's like, you're right. Like, you have to be so efficient with time that it's like, oh my goodness. I feel like every mother in the world can teach like time management and time efficiency to any of those big corporations.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
a big adjustment for me too because everything is so planned now. You can't do anything without copious amounts of planning that's involved and logistics. And I was very much a free spirit and like
Yeah.
spontaneous, and a lot of that has shifted. It served me and my business and, let my growth. But it was an adjustment at first for sure.
Yeah. I wonder how you tell your girls, and not how, but like what stories you tell your girls about their grandma.
Mm, that's a great question because I haven't. They're 3.5 and 19 months. So I do have pictures of my mom. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I will say that we need to put up it's on my to-do list to put up a gallery wall and actually print out pictures and have them going up our stairs because our house is still relatively new. We moved in 2 years ago, but I still haven't done this. So I feel like the older they get, the more I'll talk to them about her. My
Mm-hmm.
oldest has asked, like, oh, who's this? Or who's your mom? So it's more of probably before I'm telling them stories about her, which maybe this is a good indicator that I should start really telling them stories about her. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, more so it's just explaining that that my mom is, she's not here physically, but she's, yeah, a part
She's here.
of them.
You
And
know
she's
what,
here. Yeah.
Emily? I didn't realize that your older girl. I thought that she was 5 or something. But
She looks 5.
I mean,
She's
it's
tall. Yeah.
because both of you are tall. You and Alessandra, you guys are so tall. My kids are tall too. Obviously, didn't get that from me, but
I'm not tall. I'm 5'4". I don't think I'm tall, but
well, you're taller than me.
maybe.
Anybody who's taller than me is tall. Um, Yeah, okay. So they are, because I don't know, for some reason I thought your older girl was older. But yeah, I think, yeah, once they start seeing the pictures and kind of like, oh, my grandma,
Yeah.
or I don't know how you want them to call her, but and then yes, because probably, at this age kids don't, I don't know if they can grasp, right? Like, because kids like, okay, they not understand, okay, she's not here physically, but she's here, so I think you're right that they might be.
Yeah, it's hard for them to grasp that, but it is, yeah, important to talk about.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
they know, but yeah, the kids, it's interesting how, because my husband Roy, he lost his dad when Emilia was just a baby, right? And so
Mm.
my son Roy, he never met Roy's dad, but yeah, now he's 5, so he sees pictures, right? And Roy talk about his dad a lot. And so the other day, which was so interesting because also like kids don't understand, but then they do in their own way. Again, he never met him, in person,
Mhm.
but he was like, he was lying in bed and he was like, so all of the grandkids used to call my father-in-law Papa. And so
Mhm.
they know, like they hear that a lot, you know. And so Roy was like, the little Roy was lying in bed and he was like, I miss Papa. I never met him, but I miss him, you know. And so that made like my husband, Roy, also, you know, so emotional. So like they somehow, you know,
Yeah, they
they
know.
know, they know, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Um,
Mhm.
but you know, I wanted to ask you a question that about your mom, because I wanted to ask you like now how how you feel her presence in your life, and I'm going to explain a little bit. So there's this woman, and I always bring her up because that was like the most interesting thing how she explained. Her mom also passed away a long time ago, right? And she said, my mom used to love oranges, right? Like love oranges. And she said, now everywhere I go, somehow orange is there. You know, like this
Mhm.
little things, right? And she's like, oh, I know my mom is here. Like when I bought my first house, like something that was an orange, right? Or whatever, you know, she's like, I see oranges. So I wonder, how do you feel your mom? How does she show up for you, you know, in that spiritual way?
Mhm. That's a great question. Um, I think that sometimes I just will feel her presence, or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes honestly, when like, because I think of grief as kind of a wave, it like comes through your body like a wave. Sometimes it's completely unexpected. So again, kind of how I think of grief as a companion. It's kind of like, oh, like maybe my mom's presence is here, and that's why this emotion is hitting me right now, or that's why
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about this, or wave of grief is moving through me. So um that's one that's helped me with my grief.
Mm-hmm.
um the other ways that I feel connected to her more spiritually is writing. My mom wrote a lot in the last 5 years of her life, when she knew that her life was going, especially when she knew that she had terminal cancer and that went metastatic. So she wrote a lot in a journal. She left me a journal. She left my brother a journal. She had
Mm-hmm.
journals that she wrote in just about her own journey and her own experience, that she left to me as well. So I'll write to her also. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I do that frequently on her anniversary, the last few years for her anniversary, uh the anniversary of her death. I'll take typically like a full day off and just go do something for myself, where I will read the journal that she left me, the few entries, and then I'll write to her. So, and I have noticed times in which I'll see, like, her birthday is 111, so I'll see the numbers 111 around. I remember vividly having lunch with a friend of mine in New York City who was very spiritual herself, more so than I am. And she was asking, what signs I got, kind of like the question that you just asked me, like, what signs does your mom give you? Like, what do you notice? And I was like, I don't know that I receive many signs, or maybe I'm just not open enough to receiving
Mm-hmm.
them yet. And then when we got the bill, I looked at my phone, one, and it was 111. And then we got the bill and it was $111. So I was like, well, there's a sign, you know.
Oh my God.
So there are things like that. And I do think it is more so like the more connected I am to myself, the more I'm open to seeing signs. Like the more I'm meditating, the more I'm giving myself moments of stillness, um, the more I'm able to see those signs.
That is, oh, that is so beautiful because when you said, when your friend asked you, how does she show up for you? And I don't know, I haven't really seen the sign. So it's, and again, it's like, it's so spiritual, but she was like, no, 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 honey, I'm here. You know,
Hmm.
she just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, it like, it gives me like chills, you know, because yeah, it's like, you know, when we come here, a lot of people I hear say we are spiritual beings having human experience, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
so yeah, like it's we all connected, right? Even if people physically not here. And I know being on this earth, and it's hard to not have them here physically present, but how beautiful it is, like to still like feel that connection and feel like, okay, they're still here, like through that. Oh my gosh, that is so cool how like how she came up for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's
um,
cool. There's other things too where I will well, this was actually something I wanted to mention because I think it has been a very good lesson for me, even motherhood, of just the
mhm,
power and importance of writing things down. And my mom was very thoughtful in the way that when I went through her closet to, I kept a lot of her clothing and a lot of her items, but I would find notes like in purses, a note, saying when she got the purse and who gave it to her and what it meant to her. And I found all notes in a variety of things, in a bag of my kids' clothes that she had kept, or and my brother's. There was a letter for me, a letter for him. Um, but even just the words that she left me, which inspired me as a mom to get my two daughters notebooks so that I
mhm.
can write to them now, just throughout their lives, just about, whatever it is that's coming up for me in motherhood, or what I'm learning, or what it is that they're like at this, each age and things like that. So um that was also something that I thought could be useful to share.
Oh my gosh, I love that, Emily. I love that so much. Oh my goodness. What a beautiful thing that your mom did for you and your brother, like to give you, because you said she gave one notebook for you and one for your brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I think I might incorporate that for me as well, because what a beautiful thing that to give that right to the kids so they can really understand us, right? And what we were going through and maybe why we said those things, or why. And I don't know if your mom, but I'm just like thinking, of like, when I remember my mom would tell me like, I don't feel good about that girl. I don't know if I want you to hang out with her, right? And you like, because at that age, I'd be like, no, like it's my friend, whatever, but it's like they
Yeah.
have that feeling. They know like that mama bear, that protection, So it's what a beautiful gift. I really, really love that. Oh, yeah, that is, I think for my gosh, hopefully that, because we have so many women that are listening, but to take this right, to take this lesson and to give that to our kids, because also something about motherhood, which I now, and I don't know if you feel like that, right? Because when we are kids, we look at our parents as they are just our parents, right? It's almost
Hmm.
like you not like you're not your own person, you're just here to take care of me, right? And that we have
Yes.
a lot of that, right? Like like you said, we lose so much time because we have this little human to take care of. But
Hmm.
then this woman was saying, she's like, now that I am an adult and I am going through things, right? Like,
Hmm.
I realized that my mom was also going through stuff, not as a mom, but as a woman, as a wife,
Hmm.
maybe as a friend. She also had all these things, plus being a mother, So, like,
Hmm.
again, as kids, we're like, you're here to take care of me in a very, you know,
Innocent, yeah,
yeah, yeah, you know what I mean?
way.
But like,
Hmm.
but to now to understand, like, oh my gosh, now so that's my mother was also going through something. She was more
Yeah.
than just a mom. I wonder if you ever like look back, in the time you had with your mom, growing up and in your teens and then adulthood. Maybe now you understand, I don't know, some of the decision that your mom made better because now you are a mom yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's also, I'm like, oh, there's so much I would like to ask you, just even about marriage and navigating marriage for the amount of time that she did, especially with my dad being away, and how to keep your identity as like your own person when you move into motherhood, excuse me. Um, yeah, I think I definitely, now that I am a mom, see how much she did and carried and held and kept together, and uh a lot.
Yeah,
And I'm
right?
much more, because she passed away, like when I was 25, I was an adult technically, but I I wasn't able to be as much of a friend to her. I think we were there, but I think I'm like, "Oh, I would really prefer to like be able to be I would like to be able to be a friend, and be able
Mhm.
to have more of like a, not just mother-daughter relationship, but understanding more of what her story is, and what she was going through and navigating at different parts of her 30s and 40s and 50s, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely like because the question I ask you how the motherhood changed you, and I feel like that's also like one of the things when we become moms, we understand our mom much better.
Oh
And
yeah. Oh
and you
yeah.
write like that how much we do and how much like they did. And
Mhm.
yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
One last thing I wanted to ask you on motherhood, because so we both have two kids, we both are married, we both work and everything. And you know, you hear a lot women say, because not men, like, oh, I just, the balance. Like you hear this word balance. And when I think of the word balance, right? I just like, okay, so it balances, right? Just like
Mhm.
everything is in, I don't know, kind of on the same level. So my question for you is this: do you think that it is possible to achieve that balance where everything is just good and great, and you're doing, I don't know how many times they propose to do date nights with your husband, and they eating the healthiest things? I mean, you're in that business, so maybe that's not you. I feel like you do that already, because that's what you do. But like achieve everything and just being the greatest mother and the greatest friend and all of that. So I wanted to hear, since you like, the wellness coach and all of that, like what are your thoughts on balance, especially for us women?
I think it's really hard to, attain and achieve and maintain balance. I think there might be points or periods or a few days out of the week in which you feel really balanced. I think it's about like recalibrating, knowing when you're out of alignment, knowing when you're not acting in alignment with your values, knowing that you're like, it's like, okay, I haven't had a date night with my husband. We don't feel connected. Okay, what are we going to do about that? It's like all about recalibration and giving yourself time to check in. Like what feels out of balance right now, and do I want to reprioritize that? I
Yeah.
think it's just like it's a give and take and plug and play, and it's just kind of I think it's like learning to find more peace in the chaos, especially during different parts of parenthood. And again, I'm in the weeds. I'm in the beginning stages with toddlers and things. So I still have so much more to learn. But what I talk to my clients a lot about is just reprioritization and recalibration. How do we recalibrate? Are you drained energetically? What's draining you? How can we shift that?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because balance to me is such a like, I don't know. I want to say I don't like that word, but I don't think we can ever achieve to where everything is right. Because you're right. If everything's like, if you put so much time, and we do, as parents, we put so much time into our kids because they need us, especially in, I mean, up until I feel like they can drive, like they need us so much.
Hmm.
and then you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't been on a date, because and you know how it is, like when you married, especially when you have, and I know that you probably feel that. It's like I told Roy the other day, I was like, sometimes I feel like I just see you in passing at a house, and we go to bed together, and then we wake up, and it's like that, get kids to work, dinner, all of that, and it feels like, yeah, some things feel so out of balance, and then you're like, oh, this is going good. So then, oh gosh, and it's like, it's always, I think Shonda Rhimes who said it, she's like, if I'm succeeding in one area of my life,
You're failing in
you,
another area,
yeah, be
sacrificing. Yeah.
sure that I'm
Mm-hmm.
failing in another one. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
we need to talk more about like the realness, right? The
Yeah.
realness of
Yeah.
things. Um, because it's like, and you said it so perfectly, how we look what's feeding you in social media, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what's feeding you? Is that good? It's the same thing. I feel like when we eating, you feel good when you eat good, when you eat for energy, or when you just,
Mm-hmm.
when you stuff yourself with bad things, you're starting to feel bad. The same thing when you stuff your mind, you're starting to like feel angry and frustrated, and it's like, like that unknown, I don't know what's going to happen, what can I do, and all of that. So yeah, like look what you eat and look what you feed your brain to. I think it's so important, and be okay to
Yeah.
not be in balance ever.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. And know that
um
it's all a give and take, and you can't be everything to everyone, you know, and especially at the sacrifice of yourself. Like that's something that I'm really learning is just reprioritizing self. The more that I can take care of myself, the better I show up for everything else that I need to show up for.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Emily. So it's such a good conversation, and I know there's so much more to you and your story, and I like am so grateful that through Jamie that we met, and then we are forming now this beautiful friendship, and you bring in all this women together, and just I love being in your presence and all the people that you bring together. But I was wondering if you can look through your life, kind of, up until this point. I know that this year you reaching a big milestone, right? Are you good
Yeah.
about it? Are
Oh
you like,
yes, I'm about to turn 40.
you're about to turn 40? I just turned 40 a few in November, so it's like it's the that big age. And before I ask you my last question, I want to tell you something I read, and it was like, I think I might have posted it on my page, but they said 40 is a great age because the first 40 years of your life, you growing, you getting experience, you failing, you learning lessons. And then the next 40 years of your life, you implementing everything. And then
Mhm.
you basically, I am rephrasing, but basically you like bloom as a flower, like it's about to be amazing, So just 40, it's going to be, I don't know. It's just, it's something shifts in you, and it's just like, becomes so much better. So I am excited for you to turn 40, but
Thank you.
up until now, if you can choose, I don't know, one or two, and obviously not the defining moment, but defining moments that made you the Emily you are today, what comes to mind?
Mm, a few, I can say a few.
You can say yes, as
Yeah.
many as you want.
I think living and traveling abroad was one of the first defining moments for me. When I was 24, I went and lived abroad for 2 years and worked abroad, and that was amazing just in terms of being able to see the world, and experience other cultures. And I really grew from that, and became much more independent, I believe. And another huge defining moment was obviously going through the loss of my mom,
Mm.
and coming out on the other side of that. And what I learned of how just like the short period of time that we're here, like we really just don't know if it's going to be cut short. We don't, so like let's not sweat the small stuff as much as we do. Um and another defining moment was meeting my husband, and yeah, creating the life that we're creating together. I think having a baby and then another baby, and moving into motherhood has been very, very defining. So
We didn't even talk about your handsome husband, but you know what? We're gonna have another episode, I feel like, where I want to talk about to other women about marriage and all of that. Um, but yeah, Emily's husband is very cool, and they're just fun couple to hang around. Um,
you guys are fun too.
well, thank you so much for sharing, and for being so open. I really, really do appreciate you coming on and being in my life. And yeah, just keep doing you have keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing amazing work, and I really respect you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Thank you for creating the space for me to share a little bit about my story.
Absolutely.